either one of these any good?
Wow, this is a good movie.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, the director from yesterday doesn't think so.
It stinks.
You sorry? You waste our film.
It's so bad.
Back in the screening room, and we are crowded this week. So we got the quantity. Do we have the quality? We'll find out. Welcome. This is the Screening Room Podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
We're from maddwolf.com. That's MADDWOLF. And let's start with a thriller starring Hugh Grant. Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. It's called Heretic.
We just need to go home.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave. But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
I think that we're being studied.
It will make your hearts beat faster. It may even make you want to die. Do not be afraid. You will witness a miracle.
Well, this is writers and directors Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and they're probably best known for writing all three of the Quiet Place movies.
Right.
Didn't direct them, obviously.
Nope.
They've been hit and miss as directors, but here they're moving into some different territory, and this one comes out all right.
It really does. And this is mainly, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie, very solid, but it is Hugh Grant that is the push over the cliff. I don't think I've ever seen him better in a role. I mean, he just really relishes this character. He's a couple of young women, Mormons, have come to the door, and not uninvited. They're not just knocking. He has requested some time to learn about the Church of Latter-day Saints, and it's such a fascinating character, and he's so funny and smug and horrible and scary and full of himself, and he just does such a great job with this role. And one of the things that I really liked about this movie, it is a religious film, a religious horror film, and they are almost exclusively broken into two possibilities. One that sees religion very positively, like The Exorcist or the Conjuring films, or you have the other camp which sees religion very negatively, like, going back all the way to like Witchfinder General or The Devils, and more recently Immaculate, and loads and loads and loads. One of the things that's fascinating about this film, really fascinating to me, is that it finds a third option, and I loved that.
That is interesting, yeah. Yeah, a different way to go. We should mention the two sisters, the Mormon sisters. Sophie Thatcher plays one, and Chloe East are the two. And Chloe East was in The Fabelmans, and then Sophie Thatcher is from Beck and Woods' Boogeyman, and also in Yellow Jacket. So they are the two Mormon sisters.
And they're great, and they kind of represent, the one is she was born into the church. She's very naive. This is all she's ever known. And the other came to the church. Like she kind of, chose it. She's a little bit more seasoned, and they just do a great job. And the film is very eerie. It's creepy. The tensions rise. And then as soon as you sort of think it's going one direction, it goes another. It's not one of those movies where you think they're all making stupid decisions all the time. And then, there are some moments in the where you maybe feel slightly cheated. But on the whole, I think this is a really good, smart, tense horror film. But mainly, it's just, Hugh Grant's performance is more than worth the cost of admission.
It is interesting to note that it's rated R, but not really. Don't expect, because if you watch the trailer, it seems like he's got the house booby-trapped up, maybe like some Saw or something like that, but there's none of that.
No, it's not very bloody at all. There is no nudity to speak of. There's really, I can't think of any foul language at all, so I'm not sure, to be honest with you, I'm not sure why it's rated R.
Yeah, it just says on IMDb, it says for bloody violence, which even that, I mean,
There's not. There's not.
Yeah, it is interesting to get that R when it's not really warranted on this one because it's more of a psychological thriller than an outright horror movie.
Correct.
But it's definitely effective and benefits from a great performance from Hugh Grant. So that is out in the theaters starting this weekend, and we recommend it, called Heretic. Next up is a Netflix film that is starting out in select theaters this weekend. It follows the lives of the Charles family as they deal with themes of family legacy and more in deciding what to do with an heirloom, the family piano. It's called The Piano Lesson.
Sometimes you be in trouble. They might be around to help you. Tell your mama to tell you about that piano. Ask her how them pictures got on there. You feel that? That's your family. That's your blood.
This is an August Wilson play adapted for the screen.
Yeah,
and
a Pulitzer Prize-winning play.
And it's produced by Denzel Washington, who has brought many August Wilson
Yes.
as a producer to the screen. He did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He did Fences, which, of course, he starred in. But he's got his whole family involved in this one.
Pretty much the whole family. He's not in it, but he and his one daughter are producers. And then his wife and his other daughter join the ensemble cast. And then his most famous son, John David Washington, is one of the stars. And his other son, Malcolm Washington, is the director. So, yeah, it's much of a family affair, and it really feels right the more you get into the movie because this story is all about family, and it's really well done as it follows. Well, John David Washington's character has come from, it's 1936, and he has come to visit his sister, played by Danielle Deadwyler, and his uncle, played by Samuel L. Jackson. They live in Pittsburgh. And John David Washington, he has come from Mississippi. He wants to get money. He has a plan to get enough money to go back home and buy a piece of farmland for himself. Some of that money is going to come from the load of watermelons that he and his friend have driven up to Pittsburgh. And his friend is played by Ray Fisher, most notably probably remembered as Cyborg in the Justice League. And so that's part of the money. The other bit of cash is going to come from the piano in the living room that he is hoping to persuade his sister to sell. And Uncle Samuel L. Jackson pretty much says, well, that's not going to happen because we find out what that piano means to her and means to the family. And that is what the film gets into. And because it is based on a play, a lot of the scenes in the living room there with the family, you can definitely feel that it was a play. You can see that. But Malcolm Washington, the director, also finds ways to make it more cinematic, especially with flashbacks. We go back to the early 1900s with some more of their family ancestors and how this piano came to mean so much to the family and came to be, it's fascinating. The piano is adorned with these engravings, these beautiful carvings of their family members, and they go into that story. And then on top of all this, there's a supernatural element because there's a ghost sighting upstairs, a ghost from their past. And, of course, ghosts, metaphorical ghosts, themes that pop up a lot in August Wilson works. The ghosts of systemic oppression and the family trying, or a family member or the entire family trying to better themselves and fighting against the things that forces that are working against them. So those types of ghosts, I guess, aren't unusual in his works, but not so much a literal ghost.
Yeah, an outright supernatural presence. And, but it works really well, which is unsurprising. He's one of the greatest writers in the history of America. But it works really well as a vehicle to uncover everything the piano has meant, and then also in a broader picture, the historical context of the times. It's and then it's also just like sort of wow, like, oh, there is a ghost. Oh my God. So it's spooky and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. And I love the way that this is directed. There are a couple of not really musical numbers, but sort of musical numbers. And I love the way they are brought into this and directed.
Yeah, because the piano has so much to do with this movie and this family. The piano gets played and songs get sung. And so you have that music, and then you have another great score by Alexander Desplat, who always supplies a great score. So music is definitely a part of it. And the ensemble, I mean, all the actors are just so, I mean, Danielle Deadwyler, we've mentioned many times she was robbed of an Oscar nomination, much less or even a win for Till a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
She's worthy again. She's fantastic.
She is. She absolutely
She's
is.
the soul of this movie. John David Washington really, I think, has never been better.
No, he definitely has never been better.
Yeah, and of course Samuel L. Jackson is.
He's magnificent.
He's so good. Oh, we didn't mention Corey Hawkins.
Yeah,
He's
that's
in
right.
the cast.
Yep.
Also, Michael Potts. He plays a character who's sort of an entertainer, so he drops by the house and he's often kind of liquored up a little bit.
Yeah,
but he
great.
can play the piano.
Yeah.
The entire ensemble is just letter perfect, and it helps to drive these characters as you get deeper into their family history, as basically the sister and brother are arguing back and forth because he doesn't understand. This is my dream.
Yeah.
You know, this piano is worth letting go for my dream, and she's like, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
If you were doing something with it, if you were giving piano lessons, I would say, okay, we're going to keep it because she's doing something with it. But it's not just going to sit here. That's not what it's for. Yeah, it is a great argument, and two great performances to have that argument.
Yeah, and Danielle Deadwyler's character is so fascinating because she's fighting for her past, she's fighting for her future, and at the same time surrounded by all these men and the times that she's living in, she has to sort of be the person that is always trying to make them happy. But yet for this, holding onto the piano, she's not just going to say, oh, you're my brother, or just whatever you want, take this piano. That's not going to happen.
No.
It's a great story, and well written, of course, with August Wilson. And this is one of his, I think he won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for his plays. This was one of them. And it's definitely one of the better adaptations. Although I've liked all of them that Denzel Washington has been
produced,
a part of. Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
I loved them.
But this is really, really worthwhile. Again, it's in theaters, in select screenings it's in select theaters now, but it will be coming to Netflix, I think, over Thanksgiving weekend, maybe closer. But if you get the chance to see it on the big screen, definitely worth it. And it's called The Piano Lesson. Well, next up, much like The Piano Lesson, this next one is starting out in theaters before it moves to Apple TV. It follows the stories of a group of Londoners during the events of the British Capitol bombing in World War II. It is Blitz.
My mum sent me away.
She did it to keep you safe.
Your son did not arrive at his destination. You're responsible for his safety. Why can't you tell me? Where's my boy? This is for all the parents whose children have been evacuated, and for my boy, George. Make a wish. One wish.
So this is Steve McQueen, and just a magnificent storyteller, a phenomenal director, and a director that it is, I find, impossible to pin down.
Yeah.
He really does everything, and this one is, historical period drama, shot gorgeously.
Yeah, he's the writer and director. It's so impeccably shot, almost too good. We'll get into that. So it's definitely, this is so worth seeing on the big screen before it comes to Apple TV, because it'll just blow your eyeballs out. It looks so many great shots, not just the cinematography, which is fantastic. The shot making it's just insane as it tells this story. Yeah, it's set in 1940 in London, and the Londoners are having to undergo the Blitzkrieg, the Blitz from the Germans, and because of that constant bombing, they're evacuating so many people. And next to, I think, almost 500,000 of them are kids, moving the children to safer grounds. And one of the parents who has to say goodbye to their child is played by Saoirse Ronan. She plays Rita, and she puts her son George, played by Elliot Heffernan, who's fantastic. I think this is his debut, and he's great, this young actor. He plays George, so he's on the train with the rest of the kids, and then he decides midway through he just can't do it, and he jumps from the train, and he's trying to find his way back home. And that's basically the rest of the film, is who and what young George encounters trying to get back home to his mother, who doesn't for a long time realize he's missing.
And the reason that they're separated is that most of the women have to stay behind and work in the factories.
Yeah, she was working in a munitions plant, and a lot of the mothers had to do the same thing and say goodbye. I mean, this really happened. They evacuated about 500,000 kids during this Blitzkrieg, and this was 1940. This was before the U.S. was pulled into the war. And so it follows young George trying to get back home, and he encounters some benevolent people like Ife, played by Benjamin Clementine, who's great, and then some bad people who try to draw him in to their criminal enterprises. One group that's led by Albert, played by Stephen Graham, who's always good.
Always
and he's creepy and scary. So, and then it does flashbacks and to basically what their lives were before, back to how Rita met George's father, how he came to not be in the picture anymore, happier memories from George, and all of them are just photographed so beautifully. And also, I was surprised to see Rita's father, granddad, who George called, is played by Paul Weller, the musician from the Jam and the Style Council. Yeah, and he plays, of course, the piano quite well. I didn't know if he was an actor, but he's quite good in a small part. So he pops up in there as well. So it's another great ensemble and just a really gut-wrenching story that uses this one intimate situation between one mother and one child to speak more universally, and a lot of it is very relevant today, as a lot of these stories are. But again, this is one, if you can see it, if you're lucky enough to have it on a big screen in your area, my Lord, is it worth it. Just the shot making and the cinematography. And as I alluded to earlier, it's almost too good because it's so polished, and this time and this situation is so gritty and so raw. It's almost a little too clean and too polished to fit. But I don't want that to sound like too much of a criticism, because it's just so impeccably put together. It reminded me a lot of Dunkirk.
Yeah,
it really did.
Yeah.
Because the way the story's told, sort of fractured. It centers on this person, then it moves over to this person, and the different stories and how they feed a larger narrative. So it reminded me of Dunkirk a little bit, not only in its subject, but in the way it's treated. And of course, Dunkirk we love. And this one is really, really, really good, and definitely worth seeing on the big screen before it comes to Apple TV. I assume that's going to be in a few weeks. But check your local listings, as they say, because this is worth it. Called Blitz, out now. Another historical drama next. In 1985, devoted father Bill Furlong discovers disturbing secrets kept by the local convent and uncovers shocking truths of his own. This is called Small Things Like These.
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach.
You'd want to watch what you'd say about what's there. People can make things difficult for you.
Don't you ever question it?
The Lord is compassion and love, slow to anger and rich in mercy. No, don't be thinking you're in any trouble. The Lord is compassion and love. The Lord is passion.
If you want to get on in this life, there are things you have to ignore.
Well, this is just a powerful, quiet little gem of a film. And Cillian Murphy delivers yet another Oscar-caliber haunted performance.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the word is getting out because early on this had a very limited release, and now all of a sudden it's much
Yes,
bigger.
much
so
bigger.
I think the word is definitely getting out on this one.
You know, and it's funny, I can recall seeing an interview with Matt Damon while they were doing the tour, the press tour for Oppenheimer, and he said he called Ben Affleck to just talk about how remarkable it was to work with Cillian Murphy, and that he was doing things that Damon had never seen an actor do before, and that he'd overheard Cillian Murphy saying, "There's this movie I want to get made," and Matt Damon goes, "Can I make it for you?" And this is that movie.
Yeah.
He and Damon are producers on this film, as is Cillian Murphy.
Ben Affleck, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and Matt Damon. And he plays. It's the mid 1980s, and he plays a grown man who, in flashback, you see certain little fragments of flashback. He had been a child born out of wedlock, and he lived with his mother, who was a servant in this very lovely, nice woman's house. And he had a pretty posh upbringing, aside from the fact that he didn't have a father, and so like his schoolmates would spit on him and things like that. But then in the current, the film's modern day, which is about the mid 80s, he's a father with at least 5 daughters, maybe more, and
So Catholic.
yeah, Catholic, and he owns a company that delivers coal. And so he shovels the coal, he delivers the coal, and then so do all these other people. And he's a very nice person. And he personally delivers the coal to the convent, which is also a Magdalene laundry. And, this was historically accurate for 1922 until maybe the 90s.
Yes.
The Magdalene Sisterhood, they ran laundries, and people would just incarcerate pregnant, unwed women.
They just dropped them off,
Yeah,
basically.
and these girls had no say in the matter at all. It was against the law to be unwed and pregnant in Ireland because there is no separation of church and state, and because women don't have any bodily autonomy. And so their parents would drop them off with them, and they had no choice, and they had to stay incarcerated at least until the child was born, in which case the nuns adopted the baby out. They never got it. They had no opportunity to keep their own child. And then in many cases, they were there until they turned 18. And they were forced to work in this laundry, and the convent made money off the laundry. And this was essentially a business model that the Catholic Church ran in Ireland for decades, and something like 100,000 children, mothers lost their children. Their children were just gone to them forever. Also a business model that was run by the Catholic Church. So this is a very small story of one man struggling with the reality of this life that he benefits from this convent. He drops them off their coal, but he hears the babies cry. He sees the girls being dragged in. And then finally he sees a girl who's clearly being abused, and he struggles with what to do about it. It's only about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's told impeccably. The performances, top to bottom, exceptional.
The director, Tim Mylance. The writers are Enda Walsh and Claire Keegan. It's based on Claire Keegan's novel.
Yeah, read everything she's ever written. She's magnificent. I'm hoping that it's not such a small film that it will get ignored come award season, but it's a brilliant movie and brilliantly told.
Yeah, and definitely getting a wider rollout this week than originally planned, and it's in theaters now, called Small Things Like These. Next up is a family holiday comedy. Nobody is ready for the mayhem and surprises that ensue when 6 of the worst youngsters disrupt the town's yearly Christmas performance in the best Christmas pageant ever.
We take the pageant seriously. It's about community and tradition.
What do you all suggest, that I kick the Herdmans out of the church?
Yes.
I want to be Mary, and Ralph wants to be Joe.
And the angel of the Lord?
The Herdmans shouldn't be here.
They're a poor influence.
You don't look like any Mary I've seen before.
Don't touch him. I'm happy to take over the part at any time.
I can't just kick him out.
I thought you all might be interested in one of my stuffs.
You never told me you visited the Herdmans.
I got the biggest ham for you guys. Is your mom home?
Not when the sun's up. What if the Herdmans ruin this for you?
They probably will, but it's not about me. Jesus was born for the herdmans as much as he was for us. We'll be missing the whole point of the story if we turn them away.
I seem to recall that this was a TV movie when I was a kid.
It was. It's based on a 1972 children's novel and 1982 maybe or 83. Loretta Swit starred with the young Fairuza Balk in the TV movie version. But it's taken this long to get it to the big screen. And it's director Dallas Jenkins and some writers that have worked with him. I think they're all pretty long-term vets of the faith-based genre. The director, is behind the Chosen TV series. But it's told very much like, say, something like a Christmas Story, sort of in flashback, and it opens like a picture book as Lauren Graham, who plays the grown-up Beth, is talking to, she is going to direct the current Christmas pageant at the church. And before they do auditions, she's telling the story back when she was a child for the 75th anniversary pageant, and her mother, Grace, played by Judy Greer.
Always welcome.
Always good to see Judy Greer. She stepped in to take over as director back then when the original director broke both her legs. And then what happened when the local misfit family of kids, the Herdmans, they all wandered into the church one day looking for snacks and instead ended up volunteering for all the best roles in the play. And, of course, that didn't sit well with a lot of the congregation, most of them women. And so you can probably guess the lessons that are going to ensue, as this is a Christmas-themed story about inclusion and loving thy neighbor and things like that. And it's remember, it is aimed at children. So it's very broad-brushed. I mean, all the characters, the situations, the humor, very easily digestible for children to understand. And as that, it's fine. If you're going to use it as, say, a conversation starter for the story of Christmas and things like that and those types of themes, it's fine. On an adult level, I think is where I have to be honest. On an adult level, I think the thing that struck me the most is the hypocrisy of people that are going to go around and recommend this film because it's so important to learn about loving thy neighbor and charity and forgiveness when it's clear we're not interested in doing that.
Right.
Now, am I penalizing this film for the recent election results? No, I'm not. It's, as I said, as a children's story, it's fine to lead to a deeper conversation. And actually, there's one line in the film where somebody mentions that the kids, these misfit kids, they look like a bunch of refugees. I'm like, whoa, okay, now here maybe are we going to go somewhere and try to broaden this element? No, that's really it. It's all very, very broad brush. The congregation is 95% white. The sanctimonious busybodies are always women. The caring, wise elders, they're all men. It's just very, very cookie cutter in that regard. But again, keep in mind that it's for children. It has been from the beginning of the source material. And that's why I go say that it's fine in that regard. But as an adult, to come out at this time in releasing in this climate, going into this holiday season, just remember that as everybody's going to go around the next few weeks talking about goodwill and peace on earth, when it's just clear in this country we're not interested in actually doing that.
Nope.
It's kind of lands with a thud.
Does.
Beyond a children's story. But if you're just looking for that, then it will suffice. And that is out in theaters now, called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Next up in theaters, another holiday comedy. On Christmas Eve, a family gathers for what could be the last holiday in their ancestral home. As the night wears on and generational tensions arise, one of the teenagers sneaks out with her friends to claim the wintry suburb for her own. It's called Christmas Eve in Millers Point.
For the Bolzano family.
Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas.
Ma is deteriorating, and she needs around-the-clock care.
This may be their last Christmas Eve in Millers Point.
Are you really thinking about selling the house?
So it's time to make this one count.
It's gonna be a hell of a night.
This holiday season.
We're never gonna die!
Raise some hell.
It's all about family, you know what I'm saying, Lenny?
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
I know.
It's Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve in Miller's Point.
This is the latest from director and co-writer Tyler Taormina. Hope I pronounced that right. Who did Happer's Comet and Ham on Rye in the last few years. And this one, boy, this is one of those movies that really works because of its commitment to tone.
Mm-hmm.
It is all about tone. This has such a large cast, so you're not going to find a lot of character arcs here. It's more of just wrapping you in this nostalgia of getting together at Christmas, and things just happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, you think back, oh, remember that Christmas that this happened?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just together, and we're getting with family and friends, and you definitely will see some faces that you recognize, including Maria Dizia, who you may not know her name, but we talk about That Guy.
Mm-hmm.
She's a That Woman,
Yeah.
and she's great, always. Also, Elsie Fisher
Yep.
from 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Michael
here.
Cera.
Yeah, Michael Cera. He's one of these two cops. He plays Officer Gibson, and then you've got his sergeant, Sergeant Brooks, played by Greg Turkington. They're almost silent throughout the whole movie. They just sit in their car and they watch what's going on, and apparently there's this bagel thief on the loose. And that's just one of the many things that are going on as this family meets in their, as the synopsis said, in their ancestral home, and they've got some choices to make because mom is quite old, and it might be time to put mom in a care facility and sell the house. And that's a big, big decision.
Yeah.
It's a nice house and a room for a lot of people, and there's drinks are had and lots of snacks and lots of singing, and of course the young ones get their cheeks pinched by the old ones who can't believe how much they've grown. You know, it all seems very familiar and very comfortable. And at the same time, the kids are restless, and they sneak out, and the teenager sneaks out. You've got a couple of kids, one played by Matilda Fleming, another one played by Francesca Scorsese.
Ooh.
Yes. And you've got there's another very small part played by Sawyer Spielberg.
What?
Yeah, so it's just there's so many characters doing all these things, and then you get really separated by the generations where the adults are still having their frivolity but talking about this next move, which is going to be a big life change for them. You know, no longer if they're going to sell this house, this is it. And then the kids, they want to go out and make their own memories and hang out with their friends and, maybe get with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, things like that. So it's separated that way, but it all just feels nothing but nostalgic. He's not going in this big direction of something like somebody gets engaged or maybe there's a murder mystery or a love triangle or some miracle of faith. None of that. It's we've come home and this is what happens. And there are also a ton of great needle drops on the soundtrack that will remind you of the season, keep it joyous, keep it festive, and really another aspect that keeps you in the mood, keeps you in the tone. Just let it slowly work on you. And I thought it was just charming, just really, really charming and wonderful, and a nice just little slice of something warm and nostalgic for the holidays. So this one is recommended this Christmas season, and it's out in the theaters now, and it's called Christmas Eve in Miller's Point. Let's stay in theaters for an animated film, a bittersweet memoir of a melancholic woman, a hoarder of snails, romance novels, and guinea pigs. It's called Memoir of a Snail.
Life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards.
Say cheese, Gracie.
Snails never go back over their trail.
As soon as I'm old enough and got money, I'm coming to get you.
Childhood was life's best season. It never lasts, but everyone deserves one. I remember everything.
This is the latest plasticine masterpiece from Adam Elliott, who did Max and Mary a few years ago.
Mary and Max.
Who did Mary and Max a few years ago, who did Harry Crumpet, which I think was at least nominated for an Oscar. And his stuff is he has such a singular vision. You know, if you take like the Aardman animation, your Wallace and Gromits, and please do. I mean, I love Wallace and Gromit. They're very brightly colored. Everything is very like silly and fun and upbeat. And Elliot's stuff is browns. It's all these different
really
shades of browns, and everybody is a bit downcast, but it's no less charming.
But
it's
what you might notice right away is that, yes, this is animated, but it's rated R. It goes some dark places.
It absolutely
and a little
does.
bit of sexual places too.
Yeah, a little
here and there.
bit.
But it goes down some dark alleys. It really does.
Yeah, it does. I'm kind of sorry that it's rated R because I do feel like older kids would benefit from watching it. It's brilliantly put together. It's stop action animation. It's there's such great detail in each scene. But essentially, we have Grace Puddle, and it's Sarah Snook is the voice of Grace Puddle. And it begins at the end, and she's just kind of recalling her whole life to her favorite snail, Sylvia. Mm-hmm. And the life is mostly quite sad, but the film has it's got a lot of dark humor to it. And the little bursts of joy seem to, they stand out because the rest of the film is so sad, but they're also so much more heartbreaking because they're fleeting.
Yeah, it's funny. I just peeked at its rating on IMDb, and it says one of the reasons it's got an R rating was for nudity. I'm like, yeah, but they're not. I mean, okay. But yeah, the voice cast, in addition to Sarah Snook, you've got Cody Smith-McPhee. He plays Brother Gilbert.
Yes.
And then Eric Bana and Jackie Weaver. Nick Cave is a voice.
Yeah.
So it's a great voice cast, and it's a crazy story that goes in some nutty directions that is it's very, very brown. And it'll surprise you, especially, and we were talking this morning, at the end.
Yes.
Because it gives you a surprise.
Yeah, it does.
It's a welcome surprise.
It is a welcome surprise. And as heartbreaking as it often is, it's just delightful. It truly is. The humor is great. And one of the things I love about his work is that he treasures time spent with characters any other storyteller would abandon. And I love that so much. And every single one of his films is like that. And you should seek out everything he's done.
Yeah, and his name is Adam Elliott, and his latest, I certainly hope this gets some animated awards consideration.
I hope so too.
This year. And it's called Memoir of a Snail, out now. Next up, we'll go to Prime Video for a drama. Louis, an acclaimed writer, returns to his hometown after his father's death. Confronted with a host of people from his past, Louis is forced to reconcile with the stories he's stolen, misrepresented, or downright exploited for profit. It's called Okie.
How long you back?
I'm not. I gotta be heading back. I was just supposed to pick up some stuff for Hill. Ever since Dad passed, she can't bring herself to come back.
Shit, you could barely bring yourself to come back even when your old man was alive and well.
Yeah, anyway, long drive back home, so I should probably...
Come on, man, just kick it for a little bit, huh? You just got here. County fair's in a couple days.
Yeah, I didn't plan on this being like an extended trip or anything, so I'll probably
one night.
This is directed by Kate Cubb, who also stars as one of the townies that Louis, they refer to him as Lucky Louis, runs into when he goes back to his hometown. One of the reasons that I was fascinated by this movie and I was very intrigued to see it is that I wrote a book and it's based in my hometown, and a lot of the stories sort of that build it, become the book itself are things that actually happened in my hometown.
Book is called Roost, out now.
That's right. And so I wanted almost to subject myself to a movie where this man is brought to task for having done something like that. And it is a very different it's a different story because he sort of takes all of his friends' coolest moments and give them to the character named Louis, and then denigrates the town and everybody else and the rest of the book. And so he has to sort of face up to that. And I thought it was an interesting concept and fairly well executed. I think all of the performances are really good.
Yeah, and actually the three writers, Joseph Bett, Kevin Bigley, and Janet Ulrich Brooks, they're all in the cast as well.
Yes.
So yeah, and they wrote the film.
Yeah, and it has that feel to it. There's a real authenticity to the movie, and he goes there and he plans to leave, but he kind of gets peer pressured by the guy that was obviously his buddy in high school to stick around. They drink too much. And it's an interesting movie. And my one real complaint about it, and it became a quite serious complaint, is that at the same time, sort of out of nowhere and unexplained, Louis has not been taking his meds. And so he's having some hallucinations, and the longer and time sort of gets away from him, and that feels like a completely separate movie. And to work it into this movie lets this character off the hook. He never actually has to face the music. Because what he's seeing is there's so much much bigger, these hallucinations and these blood. None of it's really happening. And so he never does have to make amends. He never does have to face the music. And it just feels like a cheat. And it made the film, in the end, fairly unsatisfying.
And that is on Prime Video now, and it's called Okie. Let's do a documentary next. A fictional Alfred Hitchcock narrates an explanation of some of the lesser-known cinematic techniques he used in his movies, richly illustrated with clips from his entire 50-year career. It's called My Name is Alfred Hitchcock.
You certainly wanted us to look at faces and desire, didn't you? Your movies had a force field.
Yes. In Vertigo, I wanted you to feel the force. I wanted Kim to hypnotize you. But I also wanted you to run away. Escapism, like Carey in a field of corn.
Everyone's had their say about your movies.
But now, at last, it's my turn to take you on a guided tour of my movies. My stories. Peek into my world.
Over to you, Mr. Hitchcock.
Matt Weiner reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com. Loved it. And, he points out, rightly so, that this is not even the first Alfred Hitchcock documentary this year. Right. There are a lot of people do a lot of documentaries about Hitchcock and about his work, but there are a couple of reasons that this really is in a lot of ways superior. And one is that you only ever actually see on the screen clips from his movies. And you spend a lot of time with some of his lesser knowns, the very early pre-Hollywood work and some of the later films that weren't so splashy. And it's broken up into different themes. And so you're looking at some of the themes that you're very used to in his films. People talk about in his films, but others you've never thought about before, and how he achieves those themes cinematically. And also, you're not going to spend the whole time dissecting the same scenes that everybody else dissects when they talk about Hitchcock. It's fresh and interesting information.
Yeah, and also it uses a very good impersonator doing Hitchcock's voice.
Yes.
A very recognizable voice, obviously, but a darn good job of impersonating. So it makes it even more personal that way. And definitely one to check out for movie fans, archivists, and just really... even if you're not a Hitchcock fan, which I suppose there are people out there, but just to get inside how a legendary filmmaker approached his art is fascinating.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
No question.
Yeah, and this is out in select theaters now, worth checking out. My Name is Alfred Hitchcock, and you can find the full review from Matt Weiner at madwolf.com. Next up, a drama on Prime Video. On a journey that spans the formative years of their lives, two sisters navigate their loving but volatile father during their yearly summer visits to his home in Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's called In the Summers.
Wow. Tan grande ya.
Does it feel weird to be back?
It's weird seeing my dad with another kid.
Wow. How's school?
We graduated already.
That's amazing. Y tú, Eva? You guys did okay without me.
You're just a nobody.
You think you're better than me? What do you guys want to say?
Rachel Willis reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com and was really, really impressed by it.
This is writer and director Alessandra Lacaraza. And she pointed out the device they used just going to the summers, different summers. Especially kids change a lot over a year. So you're dealing with different people every time.
Yeah, and the filmmaker emphasizes that point by recasting. So every summer, the two sisters are played by different actresses. They're a little bit older, and it really works. Partly because, of course, you have to have them age, and the age difference at this period in life is pretty profound. But also, it underscores the fact that this dad and these sisters, they're sort of reestablishing brand new relationships, especially for the dad. The girls are new girls every year.
Yeah.
And it really, really works. She was very impressed by the way the film was put together, by all of the performances, and by the intimacy of the film.
Yeah, and that Rachel's full review is up now at madwolf.com. The movie is called In the Summers, and it's on Prime Video now. Well, so far everything has been good to pretty decent. Got to have a stinker. And here it is on Prime Video. Anna and Frasier seek revenge on the men who murdered their family. They end up in Stockholm, where they are drawn into a political power struggle between Sweden and Denmark, which culminates in a mass execution. Stockholm bloodbath.
I am the rightful king of this country. I will not have that taken away from me by some Swedish peasant!
Today's the perfect day for bloodbath.
There are no limits to my power.
I want them dead.
Good morning, Stockholm! I'm here to prevent this becoming a bloodbath.
Daniel Baldwin, the Schlocketeer, reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com and hated it. So Michael Hofstrom directed it, and it feels like it's trying to be one of those like hip revisionist histories, like Inglourious Bastards, you know, and it just falls flat. It is just, the tone is everywhere
because it focuses on a real point in history where a king in the Sweden, I guess, just decided wanted to take. I need Denmark as well.
Yeah,
and then just bloody carnage all over the place as this happens. So yeah, it seems like an attempt to sort of Tarantino that up.
Yes, and is a great cast, including Klaus Bang.
Klaus Bang,
that's right.
Yes.
It looks, the costumes look good, the sets look good. It is all over the place narratively, and doesn't hold together in any way. The script is simply not up to the task, nor really is the editing.
That's Bringing Up the Rear this week, and it's on Prime Video called Stockholm Bloodbath. And hey, speaking of the Schlocketeer,
let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Lobby time is Schlocketeer time, otherwise known as Daniel Baldwin, back in with the latest studio news. What's shaking?
Lots of horror this week.
All right.
Woohoo!
First up, there's a remake of the 1980s cult horror film Street Trash that will be hitting VOD on November 19th. Yeah. Fede Alvarez's Alien Romulus will be available to stream on Hulu and Disney Plus starting November 21st.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right. And Nightmares Film Festival 2023 selection, The Beast of Walton Street, will hit Blu-ray on November 20th, courtesy of Scream Team releasing. I believe that goes up on pre-order next week. We don't have digital or streaming release dates for it just yet, but I'll get them to you when I do.
All right.
There is a Jack Black starring Christmas comedy called Dear Santa, premiering on Paramount Plus on November 25th from the Farrelly brothers, about a little boy who intended to write a letter to Santa for Christmas, but his spelling isn't great, and he wrote it to Satan instead.
I hate when that happens.
Back to Nightmares. Nightmares Film Festival 2024 selection, Daughter of the Sun, is hitting VOD on November 29th.
Man, that movie got such profound reaction from the audience, man. People just were blown away by it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And then one more Nightmares for you. Nightmares Film Festival's 2023 selection, How to Kill Monsters, is hitting VOD on December 6th, courtesy of Dark Sky Films.
Cool, that was fun.
Moving on and further into December, Martin Campbell's new Ava Green starring action thriller Dirty Angels is getting a day and date release on December 13th. And then heading into next year, A24 has set a February 28th theatrical release for their fantasy film, The Legend of Ochi. Netflix has set a March 14th premiere for their sci-fi adventure movie, The Electric State, which is the latest film from the Russo brothers and stars, among others, Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, Giancarlo Esposito, and Ke-Huy Quan.
Okay.
Got some date shifting now to close things out. First up, Warner Brothers has pushed back the theatrical release of their horror thriller Companion by a few weeks to January 31st. That's because they have in turn moved Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 from January 31st to April 18th, which is in turn because Lionsgate has pushed back the release of their Michael Jackson biopic, which is simply titled Michael. It was going to come out April 18th. It will now come out in October 3rd of next year for a Prime Awards season slot.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple project announcements for you to end the session here. Orphan 3 has been announced. Pretty excited about that.
Yeah, Orphan 2, man, that was so much fun. That got me. I was not excited, and then when it gave the twist, I was like, oh yes, I love it. So I'll look forward to that one.
Yep. And Black Sheep 2 is happening.
That's amazing.
Yay.
Yeah, we love Black Sheep.
Yeah, they're bringing back the exact same creative team, and that'll shoot sometime next year.
Okay,
And,
well, up to now, I've heard no Frank Grillo news, so can you help me?
Well, I mean, we can hold out hope for casting later on, but the last one I've got is, of course, Fox, now that they're owned by Disney, has been reviving a lot of franchises like Planet of the Apes, Predator, Alien, The Omen. Next up on deck is The Fly. They're doing some sort of new movie set in the same world as Cronenberg's The Fly and its sequel, The Fly 2. And it'll be directed by the woman who brought us Nanny from Blumhouse and Amazon last year, I believe.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Hopefully it'll turn out well.
Yeah. All right. As always, thank you. You can check out Daniel on the socials at the Schlocketeer for more news, maybe about Frank Grillo and more. I'll be waiting. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
Looking ahead to next week, the holiday films keep coming. You got Dwayne Johnson, you got Chris Evans, you got J.K. Simmons as Santa in Red One.
Also, A Real Pain.
One called Bird.
And Underdog.
Okay, so a lot fewer titles than this year. A lot fewer titles than this week. Boy, this was chock full. Next week, not so much as we get deeper into the holiday season. But a lot to talk about this week. What do you think? Heretic, The Piano Lesson, Blitz, Christmas Pageant, Christmas Eve in Miller's Point. Yeah, a lot going on. So keep the conversation going. Always easy to find us on the socials at Mad Wolf Columbus and the main website, madwolf.com, MADDWOLF. So keep in touch. Hope you will. Plenty of movies to talk about this week. And you know what? More may pop up next week. Who
I have
knows?
the feeling they
and
will.
Some big ones coming soon.
Yes.
Yeah, we got Gladiator 2 we're going to see next week.
Wicked.
And then Wicked coming. So, yeah, boy. It's going to get heavy as we get closer to the holidays. So glad you're here this week. Hope we can get together again next week. And until then, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Screening Room Podcast.
See ya.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.